Hello everyone, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink, and for today's cards, I was very inspired by this week's Color Throwdown Challenge. There's always a graphic that we include with the challenge that inspires the colors, and I was super inspired by the graphic. I will have it posted like in my blog post, which is always linked directly below the video if you want to check it out. So that got my brain turning. So I pulled out the Honeybee Fall Bouquets wafer dies, as well as the Haunted House Builder add-on wafer dies, because of course I wanted to make it Halloween themed, because why not? And also I really liked this color combo, which is purple, gray, and black. So I did all my die cutting before I even started filming, just for convenience sake. Die cutting all the pieces from basically just white cardstock, lavender cardstock, a couple shades of gray, and then some black. And then I used this large pumpkin wafer die from the Fall Bouquets wafer die set. And I die cut 2 of them from the heavyweight white cardstock. And then all I did was I was pressing the kind of lower portion of this pumpkin into some clear embossing ink. And then I'm coating it with Ranger's Lavender Speckle embossing powder. So this embossing powder has like little like chunks of like metallics and whatnot in it, giving it that speckled look. So after I've, added it to the pumpkin, I heated it up from the underside first to try to melt it more, because even though this Wagner heat tool doesn't blow a lot of air, like it gets hot, you don't want to blow off all those chunks. That kind of defeats the purpose. So I repeated the step for the second pumpkin, and I was just using a paintbrush to kind of create like more of a sort of mottled like fade out along the top, which in the end is irrelevant because I'm going to cover all of that anyway. If you could see the whole thing though, I was kind of inspired. I was thinking of like, sort of white ceramic pumpkin vases and that sort of a thing, and how that's such a trend now to have like metallic portions on the bottom or a melted look, etc. So I did that, set those aside, and then I started ink blending onto all of these die cut flowers. So because I'm keeping the color combo technically simple, I wanted to give the purple a little bit of something. So I am just blending on some of Simon Says Stamp's Wisteria ink with one of my Studio Katia blender brushes. Now this ink goes on a lot darker than it's going to look in the end, especially on purple cardstock. It's actually going to fade out and almost will look like nothing's been added, but it still gives that it just finishes it off. It's a subtle difference. When ink blending, edges like this on die cuts, etc., you get obviously more of a bang if you're doing it on very, very light cardstock or white cardstock. Then the color is going to stay more true to its color. But when you're blending color ink on color cardstock, it's surprising sometimes how it will go on like this, like quite dark, and it will lighten up quite a bit. But I wanted that. I wanted to keep these. I didn't want that really dark definition, so I knew it would lighten up, which I was more than happy with. And since I was doing so many, usually when I'm doing a little bit of ink blending, I'll just do it like on my craft mat, my glass mat, whatever, wipe it off when I'm done. Not a big deal. But when I'm doing a lot of ink blending, like tons of pieces like this, I like to do it on, my grid paper, because that way I'm just less chance of me getting ink absolutely everywhere. It can just soak into the paper. And then, I can reuse that paper over and over again, for splatter and more ink blending and all that stuff. Like my whole pack of Simon grid paper I've had for years now. Years. Anywho, after I was done on my blending, now it's time to start assembling. So I do this all in the sort of the same way. Like I did all my die cutting at once. I did the heat embossing on those 2 pumpkins at the same time. I did all my ink blending, and now I'm going to do all my like floral assembling, which doesn't really take a whole lot. There's a bunch of different little pieces in the Fall Bouquets wafer die set, and it lets you kind of mix and match and decide what you want to create and all that. So I kept it simple by just kind of layering the large sort of sunflowery type image, and then curling up all the edges after I had finished adhering the centers, layering the flowers, and then pressing that down just with my acrylic blocks just to kind of hold it in place while I'm adhering everything. And then I would just kind of curl up the edges with my fingers just to give it that extra little bit of texture. So I did that with these larger flowers, and I did the same thing with the smaller flowers. I did have these sort of larger circular rounded flowers that I die cut and ink blended, but I didn't end up using those. So I'm just going to set those aside and save those for a future card. So after I've got everything, you know, blended, adhered, curled up and whatnot, I'm going to start actually assembling my card fronts. So I also die cut some white cardstock with the brand new, this is the stained glass cover plate wafer die. Absolutely gorgeous. I will be doing a release and review video of the new honeybee release. I just haven't got to it yet. But I use this brand new die because I thought this would add a really neat texture to the background. So I die cut it from white cardstock, and my card base is Simon's Fog cardstock, which is just a really pale gray. And then to adhere this, I just add a really thin line of glue around the frame, and then I add dots of glue. There's kind of like larger areas where the lines kind of gather. So I just add little dots of glue here and there to those spots. And then I'm just going to press this down into my card front. And like the name says, it's a cover plate, so it is A2 sized. So 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So it's going to completely cover the front of my card. So once I've got that adhered, I can start assembling these cards. So I did the first one off camera because I was just kind of puttering around. Plus I was like dealing with 10 million other things as always. So once I got the first one like assembled and figured out, you know, where I wanted to place things and whatnot, the second one came together like pretty quickly because I just kind of followed what I did on the first card. So a lot of times like people ask like, you place things with conviction. A lot of times, yes, but other times like this, I've already had a go at it. So I was able to, you know, figure out what works so that you guys don't have to sit here with me like dithering and fiddling and like moving a flower here, there, all over the place. So I did a combination of craft tacky glue to adhere the elements, as well as some foam squares and thin foam squares, just to give everything like lots of dimension, and plus it makes it easier to kind of tuck things under, you know, the flowers are all popped up with foam squares. So it makes it a lot easier to pop in all these leaves. So those big black branchy sort of things, those are from the Haunted House Builder add-on. I thought those would add kind of a cool little element to these. And then like obviously this is a Halloween video, it says right in the title. You could leave off the little ghosts and the bats and do a very non-Halloween card, but I like Halloween cards and I thought those would be really cute, and I just thought it would be so cute with the little ghosts, you know, peeking out and little bats and whatnot. So I just tucked in all the little like leaves and what, there's little leaves and branches and all sorts of little elements in that Fall Bouquets wafer die set. So I just kind of tucked them all in and around the flowers using, again, a combination of some of the craft tacky glue, sometimes using little thin 3D foam squares, just anything. And with these cards, I do have elements like hanging off the edge of it. So like I was saying in all videos, if you want this to fit in an A2 card or like A2 envelope, you could cut off everything that's hanging over the edge. Cards like this that I'm already adding, like there's parts hanging off the edge, I've got a ton of dimension, the foam squares, like all of this, I would put something like this in a bubble envelope. Just keeps it protected, easier, less chance of things getting caught. It most likely is too thick anyway to fit in a standard envelope, plus like, you know, fit with standard postage. So that's just what I would do. So once I've got everything kind of adhered, and the bats again are from that Haunted House Builder add-on wafer die, so I just die cut those from some black cardstock and added those to my card. And then I also added some of the new, I have the Perfect Petals and Raw Honey Crystal Gem stickers from Honeybee, and these are all self-adhesive, so I just have to peel them off and just kind of stick them into place. So I did a few purple ones and a few black ones. And then the sentiments are from the Fabulous Sentiments stamp set that I've already used in a previous Halloween video. And same with the Haunted House Builder add-on. I actually made the Haunted House wafer dies earlier in this series for my Halloween cards. So those sentiments I heat embossed onto just a piece of black and a piece of that lavender cardstock, and then trimmed them out. The pumpkin word I just trimmed with my paper trimmer, and then the hello word I just trimmed out with my scissors. So you can kind of see in the pictures in the end, the hello word is the lavender cardstock and how much lighter it is compared to all the flowers with the ink blending. So that's where you can kind of see a bit of the difference in the end. So after I got everything adhered, on the inside of the card, I stamped the Happy Halloween sentiment from the Fabulous Sentiment stamp set. I stamped that with the Wisteria ink, and then I stamped the beautiful sentiment with Morning Mist, basically like just gray VersaFine Clair ink. And that finished off these cards. So I will have a link below the video to my blog post. I'll have the color throwdown graphic as well as the link to this challenge if you guys want to play along. And then supply list, links to everything. You can check that out below if you are interested. Thank you all so much for watching, for thumbs upping, for commenting, subscribing, all of it. I really, really appreciate it. And I will see you all very soon in the next video. Bye.